And we welcome you to another episode on Difference of Opinions. This week, I have some guests here. Miss Tiffany Nicholson from down in Florida, and also Maurice Phillips right here in Houston, Texas. How you guys doing today?
Not bad. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Awesome, awesome. Thanks,
All
sir.
right. Yeah, this week we're gonna get into just your perspective. Over the past few weeks, we've talked about everything from just the basic principles of being a black man in society today to the killings that took place in Minneapolis with Mr. George Floyd, and also we went into the killing that took place in Atlanta, and so on and so forth. And this week we're going to just go into talking about after the protests, after the marches, the rallies end. Where do you see us going next? What do we need to do next? Those things are questions that a lot of people still don't have answers for. And I think at this time, um, we need to have some open dialogue. So as a people, we can figure out what direction we're going in. But I want to start with you, Tiffany, as we just go into your thoughts from just what's been going on in 2020 or even before then, because at the end of the day, the views we've been talking about been all from men so far. So I would like to hear it from a women's perspective, if you don't mind sharing right now.
Yeah, sure. I smiled because that's the first time I heard you call me Tiffany.
Yeah.
So, it's been interesting to say the least. I find that it's exhausting. Um, to day in and day out look at social media and the news or to read and just it just seems like it just doesn't end. And one of the things that I want to kind of address that people may not be paying as much attention to is just kind of our mental well-being through this all. I mean, there are days when, you know, I almost become afraid to go on Instagram and or go on Yahoo News of just what else, and it wears on you. And as a woman, I have a daughter, but I embrace just the black men in my life and in society, and feel just the weight of what it must be like day in and day out. And it has to, like, it's so crucial that we kind of take time to realize how we're being affected by this and take care of ourselves. Because, otherwise, how that's going to begin, the stress of it all to manifest can't be anything good.
Wow. I never thought about it from that perspective. It's definitely good to hear it from a woman. We all come from a woman, and at the end of the day, I feel, and I stated last show, I think 2 shows ago, um, we fight for the men. Well, we don't fight for you guys the same way. You guys are not protected the same way we are, and yet you guys are treated unfairly just as us. And it's not even about male or female as a race. I think we are mistreated, and at the end of the day, as husbands, as fathers, brothers, we need to make sure we got your back, regardless. So just like you say, you feel for the men in your life. Like I feel for the women in my life. I have a daughter, so and Maurice has all daughters. So it's not even like he's fighting for a son. He's more concerned with the fight for women because that's all he have to look at. He's the only male in his home, but his world is full of women. So how do you take that, Maurice, as you just shed your light on where we stand?
Well, I definitely agree with Miss Tiffany. And first and foremost, allow me to just want to apologize. Um, this particular issue going on that has been going on for a while is, for a better word, disgusting. Um, there are a lot of things, a lot of political undertone, a lot of propaganda that takes place, um, that men have not been, nor had an opportunity to be in a place of able or even able to take care of their responsibilities. So let me just start off with just apologizing, and let you understand and also know and feel where I'm coming from. Without our Black women, this particular race would have perished a long time ago. And I came from a single mother household, along with a lot of other individuals. And as a man now that I have three daughters, I'm protecting and I'm fighting and I'm living for something else that I never realized that um, the battle was. Um, it's a touchy subject for me, um, because I live it daily. Um, Also, having three daughters, um, giving them the opportunities that I didn't have, and everything that life has to offer is very important to me. Um, we as Black men, first of all, there is a systemic and a systematic problem of, but there always have been in this country. You can go back for centuries, and through slavery, through everything that has happened with this particular people. Um, Now we have an opportunity, and we've had an opportunity to change. But the number one thing that stands in our way has always been us. Um, Besides Black women, Black men usually don't stand for anything, or they're absent. Um, it's a really rare, it's a unicorn. Black men are unicorn, and they're so far in between. As the system destructs families, as all these deaths pop up with men and women. Um, Women have been brutalized and murdered as well, and um, all the protests, and I understand the protests, and I understand the people standing and campaigning and this and the other. Like, I get it, but what doesn't sit well with me, or what I don't understand, is why is Black people protesting? Why are Black people kneeling? If you haven't figured out, it's a war. This war has been going on for a while. And as I look on social media, as Miss Tiffany said, she's scared to turn on IG or Yahoo Mail because it's like, what's next? All you see is signs and people protesting, and I do understand that. I just don't understand as a people why we're doing. Um, for anybody else, and I'll throw in Hispanic as well, but for anyone else, Black and Hispanics don't need to kneel before a suppressor, someone that suppressed you. It is a war, and that's a sign of weakness and defeat. Um, I do, and maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but I have that question. We're fearful of something that will eventually happen anyway. Um, and what I mean we're fearful of is, when did men stop being men? When did Black men stop being Black men? There is really something often wrong in our culture, with the guidance, with the direction. We have men afraid to be men. We have men, Black men, youth Black men, that are scared to be men, and they go into different lifestyles. They go into gender lifestyles. We have Black young girls with no direction that are scared to be Black women. I want to know when all that started. You know, um, that's the question that I have. Um, we as a people need to realize that the only thing in the harm that has been done It's what's been allowed. No, we didn't, or no, we weren't born into this, but we're all definitely living through it. And it'll take a black people, to change what's going on. And I'm not seeing that, you know. Um, I'm just, frankly, I'm fed up. You know, I'm fed up with these henpecked people. Uh, I'm fed up with all the protests and all the marching. You're face down, you're handcuffed, and they're killing you anyway. So, like, what are you afraid of? If I'm gonna die for nothing, I might as well die for something. Is how I frankly see it. So
Wow.
that's my stance on it.
Uh, it's a lot to take in, and at the end of the day, I think it is very valid. Like we said, we're here talking about just some of the things that we've kind of touched on, with the protest, the marching, the rallying, those things, and you stated that you don't feel that's a position that we should be in, and we'd like to welcome in one of our co-hosts. How you doing, Cecil?
Doing all right, man. Doing all right.
We you waiting backstage and kind of listening in, and uh, they laid some heavy stuff on us just from their standpoint, their vantage point. Let me hear your heart this week. Where you at?
Man, this week just really pretty much just tired, man. Like you said, um, now it's time to go into action. I think that it's been done plenty times before, protesting and things of that nature, and now is action time to really get what we need as black people to be put forth on our agenda, and to be a people that really carry it out. Um, like I said from before, we have to establish some of our own things for ourselves, because that's it. That's something that's going to be needed. But just action time now to really do what we need done for us as a people.
Wow. As a people, when you say as a people, how do you guys take that stance, or just when we're sitting here talking about what's next? Um, like, how do you guys first of all feel about all the protests that's been taking place?
I think that it's a good thing. I think it's a necessary thing. I think it's something that gets people involved, you know. And it's not for everyone. I mean, everybody can't be out there protesting, and that's not everyone's, kind of position and role and what they feel comfortable doing. But
Mhm.
for those who do, I applaud and appreciate them, because I think that it's a necessary step to where we need to go. I think I'm probably considerably older than you guys, and it's a fight that we've seen in the past, and it's a fight that our parents and our parents' parents talk about, the protest, and I think that that's not the end, obviously, but I do feel that it's a necessary step. I don't feel that we would be able to accomplish the things and to be in a position to take the actions, like Cecil spoke about, without this sort of uprising that we're seeing now.
When you say a uprising, though, do you really feel it's similar to what we've seen in the past? I've always felt um, our generation, we missed the mark. In 2008, when Trayvon Martin was murdered in our state, uh, you know, we were in the midst of our youth, in our prime. We missed the mark. We let too much go on, and it started a trend. And I really feel like at some time, California, they have it together, but a lot of those people are now babies of the Black Panthers. And you know what I'm saying? So their military mindset is a lot different than some of ours. When it comes to the peaceful protests, how long do we continue to take the nonviolent approach of Martin Luther King? How long do we sit and turn the other cheek? How long do we continue to try to do it uh, the way of not by force? Because these behaviors, this way of life is forced upon us now.
I
Uh,
f- mhm.
Go ahead.
No, I mean, I feel like, when like when I think of it in terms of, okay, the non-violent approach, like I don't necessarily look at it in those terms. L- I don't feel that we're in the situation to where we win with a violent approach, because I feel like there's way too much stacked against us, and that just ends, just like, I don't feel that that's a situation that we can win.
Do you feel that it results in too much bloodshed? But some may say it's already bloodshed. What,
I do. I do feel that. I mean, I because I don't feel like I don't feel, and I won't say this for everybody, but I just, like, I don't feel that we're equipped for that, and I don't feel that that's something that we necessarily have to resort to get where we need to be.
uh, Gentlemen, let me hear your take when it comes to some of the things we just talked about briefly in the last 2 minutes. Maurice, I seen you shaking your head quite a bit.
Well, okay. I definitely agree. Please don't get me wrong. I think there does need to be protests, and I think there does need to be marching. I think there needs to be um, planning and some type of evolution done with the the caveat of equal justice and equal rights of all people. I just don't think it needs to be done by Black people. Um, if and I'm just going to pitch an idea out there. This is only an idea. We, as a people, have been treated this way well over 400 or 500 years, and all the individuals. I have I have neighbors that are not Black. Um, I have other individuals that um, see me as Maurice and not as a Black threat. So when I say the marching and protesting is definitely necessary, I remember when other religions, other entities wanted to be justice. I remember gay rights. I remember the LGBTQ community, how a bunch of races of people came together to fight one cause. Hispanic rights, you have all these different things. So I think the marching and protesting is very, very important. Again, I think we need to have a different stance and not necessarily militant, but I do think we need to have some type of discipline. Um, that's what it's about. As I hear this sister talk and say, hey, we're not equipped, that only allows me to think that that's where the insecurity sets and a lot of Black women and a lot of Black people, because they don't feel equipped to defend themselves. So maybe that's where we need to start. We as a people need to defend ourselves or be able to defend ourselves. The issue with that is that a lot of our Black individuals are only on this train because it's a hot topic and it's a fad. The reason this sort of behavior still continues is, to be honest with you, a lot of Black people don't care. That's why we're the only race of people who won't stand behind each other and support each other because of ego, because of this, because of that. Regardless of what economic platform you hit, regardless if you on east side, the west side, the south side, or the north side. It doesn't matter if you're in different territories or you're a rival gang. For everybody that this affects, you were one thing first, and that was black. You will be black for the rest of your life.
Mm.
So people need to first understand that the protesting is great, but I'm associated with a bunch of different people. They need to protest other than black. That means we have Jews, we have whites, we have agents. That means we have doctors, we have lawyers, we have money, we have political, we have police. Let them protest. We need to have a different stance because the only thing that's stopping us from doing anything, and I believe the brother Cecil kind of touched on it a little bit, the only thing that's stopping us is us. Today, and what's going on, we're to blame, not white people, not the police. It's going on because we're out of pocket. Until we deal with that, they're going to keep killing us.
Mm.
And when you have strong black men and black women who have enough discipline to not go out but also defend themselves, it's going to be a weak-minded black person who ends up getting them killed.
Okay.
That's what's going to happen. These men are not stepping up being men, and that's what's going to happen. To me, they're liabilities because they're going to end up getting a real one killed. We have to stand for something.
Okay. What about you, C?
Like I was saying, I think protesting is good because it still allow for that method to be used. I think now strategic planning with not just ourselves, but with others that also has a platform that we can use to really get things that we need going that are on our side per se to really get the whole equality thing moving is something that we need to put some energy into now, just because all ears or majority of ears are open. So now is getting to that point where we can sit down at the table and like he said, take our stance with the knowledge and the understanding that we're not going to move from what our stance is. Needs to take place to go hand in hand with what the protesting is. So for me, just the planning of what we're trying to do needs to come in to be able to further extend what we have been doing from the protest. Now we can get into these table discussions and be able to really have that voice there present for us is something that needs to happen.
Okay, so now that we talked about getting together, strategizing, we talk about getting together and get organized. We talk about getting together and making sure we're confident in each other. I'm gonna ask you this, Tiffany, as a black woman, do you have confidence that the young men can get it together and get on one accord? Because I believe 2 shows ago we said that as a race, we're the most forgiving to others, but we don't forgive each other. And we hold each other accountable for life sentences for misdemeanor offenses. Uh, I will fight my brother quicker than I would my oppressor. And like Maurice said, at the end of the day, before anything else, we're black. Do you feel that we can put our other stuff aside to, as men, take our rightful place in the front and lead and do what we need to do for what needs to happen?
I feel like with the love and support of Black women, which Black men have always had, even, sometimes to our detriment, I think that Black men are capable to do any and everything. So, like, I don't feel like, that it's our, like, all we can do as, mothers and daughters and wives and grandmothers is just kind of, love and support you,
Mm.
and hopefully the love and support, um and knowing that you're not in the fight alone. We are here. We've always been here. So it's not a matter at the end of the day of, well, at the end of the day, it's kind of, men knowing that we're here, we've always been here, and we'll always be here. We are the shoulder to cry on, and it's okay to do that. Um, we got you. So if when men realize that we got you, and that that just kind of unburdens you and gives you the opportunity to just go out and be great, because at the end of the day, you have us to come home to. You have, the mothers, the sisters, the wives, the daughters, to have you. So take that knowledge and just go and make changes and be great.
Okay, so I hear that, but at some point, it's like we feel too that the confidence is lost. Or like Maurice said, like earlier, everybody's not taking their rightful place, or everybody's not even comfortable being a man. Everybody don't even stand up for themselves sometimes. So if I don't stand up for myself, like,
So then, Kenny, let me ask the question of you guys. Like, what is it that you need from us to feel confident to do that, to take your rightful place?
well, I think the three that's on here, that's that's not an issue, but we can't answer
Right.
that question. I
There,
mean,
there, there's not an answer for that. Women have always been there. Women will continue to be there, as you said, sometimes to their detriment. Um, Again, for lack of a better word, I'm going to call them liabilities. We have a lot of liabilities in our culture and as Black men right now. And until we regain, and then also that confidence, and more or less what some of the undertones that you're hitting on, some of that confidence is not going to be welcomed with open arms because Black men have been absent so long. And some women, like I married into a family of women. I got married at the age of 27, and I happened to be the head of a household of all women. And strong women, because they were put in a position without a man there that they had to do something. So when I came, everybody had an opinion. Everybody is strong and nothing's wrong with that. So I think the majority of the fight will be continually. Some of those women won't give those reins back because you have to earn that. And just because you're there 1 or 2 years or whatnot, you sit there and think about how long women have been holding the torch for Black people without absent a father. You think about that. So again, we're having a discussion which is really, really healthy. But until Black men get back into what men should be and what men should be doing, that's this may take years, because Black men have been absent so long. I grew up without a male father. A lot of people I knew, I had to teach myself how to be a Black man. I had to see resemblance in certain individuals, how they carry themselves, how they talk, to understand, hey, I see a reflection of me and him, even though I was a young boy. So a lot of us, by trial and error, have figured this thing out. No, I'm not perfect. But in my daughter's eyes, I'm a hero. That's what matters to me. So a lot of us are growing up trying to be without having that blueprint. We're behind. We're really, really behind in a lot of ways as Black as Native Black people. We are. So it's great conversation, but there need, i- i- even though that support is there, um, I don't know.
Man, we have one of our listeners. He's loading us with a lot of questions and facts. Andrew West, thank you. Um, it's one of the questions he's posed here. If anyone cares to take a stab at it, for me, I feel it's the system. The system is fighting us. The system is trying to control us. The system is in place to make sure that um, we stay under control. It's been that way since slavery has been in place. If you look at them taking the strongest slaves back then and placing them out in front of everybody and cutting off their manhood and just treating them wrong in front of everybody. It was a control tactic. We talked about I think a show ago just how policing got started. It was designed to keep slaves intact. So if you look at that, like I believe it's a system. The system is the problem. The system has to change, and yes, it does have to change with us going to court or getting things done in our favor. But we also have to go about getting it because even when we go about it in a peaceful manner, there's still a problem. I was talking with Maurice earlier, and he did a peaceful, non-violent movement at his home, and it changed the way his very own neighbors looked at him. If you care to share, Maurice, you can share your story, but they don't. Just something simple. You didn't go out and be aggressive. You didn't do anything crazy, but hang up a flag, and you can share the story if you care to elaborate.
Well, it, that's. Let me address the question, if I will. Um, as Ken said, the system is the issue, um, but the bigger issue today, we kind of remove, and then you said what system, to remove this systematic issue that we have that was embedded in us since slavery, the fear. Um, we have two issues. The first issue is what was done. The second issue is what we allow to happen now. Even though a system of oppressors humiliated us, divided us, it's up to us to change a mindset in 2020 to make sure that did happen. I'm not forgiving, but I won't forget it. But moving forward in 2020, you have to be able to elevate your mind, your thoughts, to understand what happened in the past happened. To keep that, and then it's kind of sad because it is happening in today. And not only is it happening today, it's being video recorded. It's being publicized. You can't turn on your phone or Instagram or social media or anything without seeing someone posted a video of white supremacy doing something. Um, I wish everybody would just stop for a second and understand what's really, really going on. If you allow an oppressor to make you think or feel something that has happened 3 or 4 or 500 years ago and that instantly makes you mad, have enough sense to change it and grow from it instead of being upset and complaining and doing nothing.
Maurice, I completely agree with you. Like, I feel that to say, this happened to us and that's the problem is a cop out, because at some point you have to take responsibility
For yourself.
and for yourself, for your family, for everything that you believe in. So, yes, life sucked for us for a long time, and it continues to be bad, but at some point you have to be willing to, you know to take a stand and move beyond that.
That's correct.
We've all heard, at how much better we have to be to even be seen as close to equal. And that's kind of the mindset. Like, yeah, we know that we started, you know, without, that white started with 400 years head start. We know this. So knowing this, what do we have to do to close the gap? We can't just say, the system and the cards are stacked against us. Yes, they are. Now, what do we do?
Mm-hmm.
And you hit the head on the nail, and that's the second half of it. And I guess I read some of the comment. I'm not blaming. I'm not blaming or pointing fingers at our black society or black men. But let me tell every black man that's listening: you are responsible today. You're not responsible for 400 or 500 years ago, but in 2020, you are responsible. That's the issue. So if you call yourself a man, if you are a black man, you have a charge on your life. You are responsible. We can't go back and fix history, but we can write it starting today. That's the other side of it. So she's absolutely right.
Mm-hmm. I mean, as we sit, like you say, the systems, but it changes, and as we continue to grow, we continue to push forward, we continue to work, and again, we're asking because again, we have march, we have protest, we have rally. All right, so now it's saying everybody's saying, hey, we got to get together and vote. We got to get there together and get to the polls.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's like now you're going to the polls, and as you go to the polls, is that the answer as well? Because who are you putting in office? So as people continue to get closer to the election, more and more comes out. It's the lesser of two evils. Who do you go with? What works for your family? What doesn't work for your family? It's no
Right.
longer for me as a black man to just say, "Hey, I'm voting Democrat just because I'm black." Now I have to start to look at what each politician brings and what does it do for what I need and for what my family needs. So those things, like we're saying, go vote, but then are we sending the wrong message when we just saying go vote, and we're trying to get everybody just because we're black to jump behind one party? And I think the education of understanding how voting works, how to get to the court, how to get rulings, how to get things done in your favor is where we need to find ourselves going. And we need to find ourselves going there quickly, very quick.
It's not like I feel like people look at it as like all or nothing, like it's not just go vote. Yeah, voting is a huge part of it, and currently in the society and the structure that we're in a two-party society. No, we're not going to vote Democrat just because we're black, but you know given the alternative, what are the other alternatives? And
Hmm.
until we're willing, to go and have like a viable, third party, or even a candidate in the Democratic Party that speaks more to us, that's what we have to work with. But no, it's not just that. It's not just protesting. It's not just educating yourself. It's not just, you know, um, stepping up to the plate and providing for your family, but it's a combination. Like, you don't just come out of 400 years of oppression with any one tool. You need a whole bunch of tools and a whole lot of things going right and aligning to where, because like I think Maurice, you mentioned it earlier, this isn't a fight and change that's going to happen overnight. We're fighting for our kids and for our kids' kids. And while we kind of look and say, yes, we've protested in the past, yes, we have. And, we can point to progress that was made as a result of that. It's not happening as fast as we would like it to happen, but 400 years was a long time to try to dig out of.
Hmm.
And I think that's really, really valid. Our children, my children, Your children can. Anybody that has youth, that's the direction we need to start steering them in. How many young families are putting politics and things of that type of nature in their kids' minds? I know everybody can't go to the NBA, everybody can't go to the NFL. We need some black people to produce black leaders. Therefore, we have some type of identity and also voice. First of all, we need to come together as a people. We need to have, hey, whether it is Democrat or Republican, we can't get any of that done because I don't feel, and this is only me, I don't feel we even know what we want.
Mm.
So, all this sounds really, really good. But if someone said, you know what, we've heard it, it's over. We're going to give y'all what you want now. Are we still asking for 40 acres and a mule? Like, what do we really want as a people? How do we want to be addressed or acknowledged as a people? We are also the only race in America that does not have their own identity. Like, where do we start?
Welcome in, Marlon. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How about you all?
Good, man. We had some good discussion. Basically going over protests, rallies, marching, and we've done all that. We've done all that since the '60s,
Yeah.
and we still here.
Mm-hmm.
So what do we do next, man?
Well, you got to come up with. I think when people start talking about agendas, man, I'm pretty sure y'all have mentioned a lot of times, but you got to come up with agendas that's inclusion of blacks. I'm not a person of color. I'm a black man. I'm not just a minority. I'm a black person. I'm not and so I think that we have to find ways to eliminate some of the guys that have been compromised and some of the people who are in this just to booster themselves. And at some point in time, we can't be shameful about calling them out, even if they have larger platforms than us, because many of the times they have larger platforms than us because of them selling us out per se. I think that there needs to be I think that needs to be first and foremost when it comes down to talking about what we want, and then we got to talk about the economic empowerment. The economic empowerment has to be about principles and over feelings. Um, we got to remember that economics is not just about money and commerce. Economics for Black people should be about, or Africans, however you want to say it, should be about the development of the mind. And when you develop the mind, that's our education. That's our educational base, because we know that we're going to support one another. We're going to treat one another the same way. We're going to buy black, support everybody, and our money's going to stay amongst ourselves. So I think that's where we need to start at. I think that when people are talking about what can we get now, I think people need to start talking about a lot of things, public and private contracts with the government or with the public, to make sure that 20 to 25% of all their contracts go to black businesses, and not just a black business that's a front for a white person that has a token face out there just to say that he's a part of something, but a real black business. And when you start talking about making money like that, you can change. We'll see things change in 2 years if we could make some concessions like that. So those are some of the things that I think are short-term goals that are very attainable for the contracts. Now, the economic part about developing the mind, that's going to take a little bit longer, because we have to understand on who we are and what we really want, what we stand for.
Wow. I I like the point that you brought up when you said the mind, and I think that's where it needs to start. Educating the mind, educating the change up top, but it starts, like you said, in your mind, and that starts in the home as well. So
Yeah.
the homes that do have fathers, the homes that do have strong mothers, putting it in the mind, because uh, like we said weeks ago when we were talking, it's not our generation.
Mhm.
It's it's that generation that's coming up right now that they'll band together quicker than we do. and we've set bad examples. We've showed them, the wrong ways to go about getting things done. And when you look at it from that standpoint, if their mindset is right, if we could get their mind to the place where it needs to be, then we can guarantee that our grandchildren don't go through the same thing.
I agree. And we need to start talking about, we need to push uh, not just prosperity, but we need to press posterity. Where we understand that, listen, we're not just living for ourselves, we're living for our kids, our grandchildren, and even for the generations that we'll never see. That's what the white people do on everything they do. They pushing for the generations that they'll never see, and we don't. We only live for today. And the biggest thing that I hate about, I don't want to say hate, but what I dislike about what we're doing is, what we do is we buy what we want, then we beg for what we need. I've said that, and we that's our mindset because we haven't been conditioned. We're standing in line for hours, even through with this COVID, just to buy some Jordans. And then when it comes down to destroying white supremacy or fixing the court system, now we're gonna beg everybody else to help bail us out. And we've got to change our mindsets when it comes down to that. We really do.
Mm. What's your thoughts, Cecil?
I mean, first go back to your question when he was like, "Who are fighting the black men?" Part of it is ourselves. I think that we see one black man become successful. It's from slavery. It's been inbred in us to not want to get behind and encourage and support, but to pull down. So I think with the system, once again, our mindset has to change and understand that we can support and still be pulled up as well. I think that's a big issue. We have a tendency to look at someone that has become successful, and we tend to do a lot more hating on that person than congratulating and supporting and encouraging that person to continue to do what they're doing, because we are a part of it through our support, through different things. So I think along with the system aspect, it has to be part of it has to be ourselves fighting with each other.
Mm.
No question. No question. No question.
So we go from that, and you said it's no longer about economics. We got Andrew begging the whole panel to say the word freedom. Uh, we've been talking about freedom for forever. We've been talking about freedom since the 60s. So when we talk about those things and those simple liberties or the equality, we get to the level of equality, but even when we think we're on a level playing field, we're still not. Even when we think that uh, we're voting towards a better tomorrow, we still find ourselves right behind. So we could change the mindset. We could sit and give it a different look. We could change the outfit that we're in, right? We're playing on a bigger scale. We're playing with a different pot. Now we got the doctors, the lawyers. Now we have the athletes with the money. Now we have some people owning teams in position. But then at the end of the day, when it's time to make a move, if somebody with the resources get out there, like you said, see, do we get behind them? As a race, as a culture, do we get behind each other when it's time to go ahead and make that rule? Maurice, you brought up a point earlier when we were speaking it just about the NFL. The majority of the league is what?
Is black. And at any given time, they could have taken all that money, all their resources, and started their own league. But again, that goes back to everybody on this panel is saying the same thing. I'm not going to cower up. I'm not going to bite my tongue. We, as black natives, are the issue. That's it. We're the issue. If I have And I think about that, and I once said that, when Colin Kaepernick did this, you have all these black individual men who've made it in the National Football League. If they were to take their resources and money and talent and start their own league, the NFL would not exist anymore. But I said to myself, would I, as a billionaire, leave and give billions of dollars to a people who I know won't stand for anything? See, I can't blame the men, because it would be asinine to ask them to give up their lives for a people or for a position of people who will not stand behind and believe in anything. Until we do that, we will be in this situation. So that's everybody's saying the same thing, and everybody has that same tone. When are we going to start? It doesn't need to be jealousy. I don't need to run everything. Division has, that's a trick. Deception and division. I'll give you smoke screen. Go vote. Matter of fact, I'll give you a black president. Like, come on. These are smoke screens.
So,
and Barack Obama, he did what he can do. He did what he can do. He couldn't get it all done. But let me tell you something. All the smoke screens is what's, they're smoke screens. Voting is, we've been doing this 50s, 60s. I'm not kneeling anymore. I'm not posting anything. I'm not wearing a mask saying I can't breathe. I can breathe. Everybody else needs to take that same position. People are showing too much fear. It's too many cowards. I would not fear people who don't stand for anything, or who I can give one black man something, then I know 100 of them will be jealous, so they'll still be divided. It's a trick. Success isn't success. It's a trick.
I like it. Marlon, you said a point last week, and Andrew just put out his statement. He's been on a roll, and I appreciate you, Andrew, for giving it to us. And I'm almost compelled to invite you in, just to get it. But Marlon, you talked about following the money, the dangle of money last week.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Let's just, if you want to answer to
well, Wes said something about freedom, but he's got this, we want, the stimulus, not taking the stimulus, right? I agree with you to a degree, a large degree. I'll tell you that. Right now you want the stimulus only because what you did was, because many people have lost their jobs and lost income. So you want that to help keep you. What you don't want to do is remain on the stimulus, because if you remain on the stimulus, the government wants, and the state wants you to become dependent upon them. Once you become dependent upon the state and the government, now everything is out of your hands. You can't do anything if that means that you're relying on them to give you the money that you need to survive day to day. And we don't need to have that. So I think that even like when you start talking about freedom, we need to start using the word sovereignty a little bit more. Sovereignty is, it's the right for the government to have or an area to have complete control over its own area, to be able to make your own laws in your own land. And that's kind of what you should be talking about, a little bit of sovereignty. We need a sovereign nation a black sovereign nation, a African sovereign nation overseas or in here. In regards to what you're saying, Ken, about follow the money is, I tell people all the time when I watch people on television, I'm always mindful of their background and who's paying them. Who's paying them? What boards are they a part of? What group are they a part of? Who are they affiliated with? Because plenty times they leave the breadcrumbs to let us know who they with, who's paying them, what's their agenda, or who they're speaking on, whose behalf they speaking on to try to mislead us. And many times we've been so trained that when we see somebody black in a spotlight, that we're so excited that we're going to follow them and run behind them, and many times they leading us to the slaughter, man. So that's just the nature of it. We gotta know who's paying who, and we gotta find a way to hold these guys accountable. To be honest with you,
Mm.
Amen.
Tiffany, we haven't heard from you.
I know, I'm just kind of just taking it all in. So like, I have a question. Like, do you feel that, and this is for anyone, but it's a kind of a direct response to what Marlon was saying about the concept of sovereignty. Like, do you feel that that's something that we need, versus do you think that we can make the system that we're in work for us, that we can get equality? That's for you, Andrew. That we can get equality in the system that we're currently in. Like, I feel that, yes, sovereignty is just, it would be the ideal situation. But even with sovereignty, look how that's working out for the Native Americans, not so well, so it, like, while I see and I understand and I get that, I just personally feel that we have to find a way to get what we rightfully deserve within the system that's in place. And Maurice, you were talking about, and I agree with the pro athletes and the entertainers, like, yeah, we would like for them to, do like the Tyler Perrys of the world and the Oprahs of the world. And regardless of what you feel about them, they are people that have been able to have and own. And if we had more of that, I think that we as a race would be in a better position, because it's hard to, if we're not owning the banks, and we're not making the rules in government and politics and all of that, it's hard for us to, get the knees off of our necks, because, every step of the way, we have to fight that much harder if we're not the ones in position, to make things happen.
no, I get that. I mean, I know if somebody else want to speak, Maurice, but
Man, you good, Lo? Go ahead.
I get that. I get that. And my deal, when I say sovereignty, and I mean what I said when I said it, but at the same time, I communicate personally, and I have developed relationships with people on the continent of Africa. I feel like it's essential for us to, as we grow here, that we find a way to connect with somebody on the continent. That's just me. And I feel like once we can work collectively together, now they can help us and we can help them. I think I honestly believe that since things have went down with George Floyd, you see a lot. I don't know if you've seen it, but there's been a lot of African nations speaking out about what has been going on, what has went on over here. There are a lot of African nations. They were in lockdown also. They stopped their lockdown and they have went out and protested to the United States embassies over there in regards to what's happened over here. So there's a conscious effort from them to try. They're reaching out to us. They're letting us know, hey, we see you. And we have to make a conscious effort to say, look, we need to connect, because what we have learned over here and with all the resources they have over there, we need to come together. Because listen, the way I feel it is like this. I'm not just a Black American. I say that I'm an African. That's just how I feel. I'm an African in America, and I was born in America, but I have an African mindset. I have a Black mindset. So when it comes down to building, I want to build here, yes. But one thing I do know is I feel like they will burn this thing down. They will destroy this country before they allow us to have a strong part in it. Am I optimistic about it? I am optimistic. I would hope, but I don't put anything past anybody, because anytime that something has happened, they've went to war against anybody to protect their assets and to steal somebody else's assets. We're perfect examples of that. We've seen that. So I don't put anything past any of them.
I like to welcome in my one of my college roommates, the founder of Black Heights. He has his show podcast going on YouTube and various platforms. He's been listening in the background for over an hour, and he's been one of the parts of my inspiration to getting this started. And so let me hear your take, Antoine. As you've heard a lot going on, and um, you have various points, and I want to pick up where you are.
Yeah, thank you, Kenny. Man, can you guys hear me, first of all?
Yes, we can
Yes.
hear you.
Awesome, wonderful. Thank you for inviting me on. I gotta say this, Kenny. I did not participate in the last 10 minutes. So what I would prefer that we all do is let me get on the next round of the conversation so that I can get a little bit more insight into what is all being talked about, and then I'll give my opinion. So skip me for now, and I'll continue to pick up, sir.
All right, I got a question here from one of our other brothers, a college roommate, Darcelis Reed. Nice to see you on, D. Miss Nick, Tiffany, you may know him. You've helped him with his college courses as well. His question is, do we need a leader or one person or persons to get behind to deliver our agenda? And I think we had that in 2008. And I think even when that did happen, we had a person to get behind. How much of it went in our favor, how much of it changed, and then how much did we hold him accountable for when he couldn't get everything done that we wanted him to? I believe, like Puff Daddy speaks about, hey, we have the power with the vote. So do we hold them hostage to get what we want until they get our vote? You get what I'm saying? And that's some of the things that I think, yes, we need to get behind someone that we can push up to be able to run the country. But at the end of the day, we also need to be sure that that person is not, like Marla said, just being pushed up as a token and getting their payment from somewhere else.
I think leaders take a lot of different forms, like while it would be great to have, this national voice that we all kind of rally around, like, the Malcolm X's and the Martin Luther Kings and the Farrakhan's and, whomever else are those people, the Jesse Jacksons, the Al Sharptons. But I think that, we would do well for leaders to emerge at the local level. I think that, it's easier to kind of, rally around someone that, you don't necessarily feel so far from. I think that, when we look at some of the national leaders, they could seem, kind of out of sight, out of mind. I'm not quite there, but if you have just this, I think, I forget who it was, Maurice talked about how we need to cultivate leaders amongst us. Like, I think that would do us well to just kind of start, with the putting some of these young, energetic minds and ideas out there to make a difference, who are in it for the right reasons. Because oftentimes, the older ones have become jaded and bought and sold. And again, if like Marlon said, if you follow the money, they're probably, receiving checks from people that don't have our best interest in mind. So I think that we have to be careful when we look for and talk about, a leader Like we can't just have any and everybody who's out there and has a platform and a voice, like someone mentioned earlier. We have to kind of, make sure we're vetting people who are speaking for us as a community.
Anyone care to elaborate?
Well, I would say I would jump in on this one, Kenny, if you don't mind me taking an opportunity to speak up now. I would say that leadership has to take a form of multiple people. I don't think it's just going to be one, especially in the democracy that we have here in the United States. I think it's for individuals to really get on board with an agenda that we all recognize that's in a best interest of each and every one of us to push forward. And when I think about leadership in general, right, leadership in general is just the ability to influence others. And although we have many leaders who are able to influence others in other areas, we don't have very many that has the ability to influence us as a group of people towards one agenda. And I think that's an area that we need to find more discipline in. What is it that we really do want as a community of African Americans, as Blacks, whatever you want to call us? What is it that will help us take the next step to an area where we feel like we are getting the equality? What sort of leadership does that look like? Is that for us all to have equality? What does equality mean? What does it mean for us to be educated? What does it all mean? What is the agenda that we're putting in place, right? And I think that's an area that we really need to elaborate on and really have a description, so that leaders like yourself who have a platform, leaders like a lot of the entertainment industry, leaders like the ones that are in politics, to be able to speak this and continue to push the message forward so that we all get it, right? And whatever that is, once we understand it, I do think that the agenda will become a lot more clear, and we'll have a vision and a step towards what our ultimate goal will be, and that is to have equality, right? And equality for me could be something different than what it is for you, Kenny, and so forth, right? Because at the end of the day, how the U.S. educates us is really an individualistic mentality, right? But when we're fighting in politics, it's a group mentality, group think, and all this other stuff. You fall in line or you get left out. And for us right now, I feel like we're getting left out because we haven't, decided to group amongst ourselves and define what that is that we want and push that forward from an agenda perspective. I think when we get to that point, we will be able to make a lot more room going forward. And I must say this, I am very, very optimistic about what the future holds based on what I'm seeing now. I see a lot of people, a lot of young people with a lot of energy that do speak up. A lot of people like yourself and myself who are using our platforms to speak up and push a message that we think is best for us. But again, where is the ultimate agenda for all, right? From an equality standpoint, I would like to see that to be defined by somebody of the African American race that has the best interests in the African American people.
I like the way that was said. Wade, I like what Tiffany said is about leaders. I personally feel like I'll keep going back to economics, the foundation. I start talking about the principles of training the mind. Once we train the mind and people are on the same page and they know what we stand for and who we are, then you don't need a leader per se, because everyone will have a clear understanding on what the agenda is, what the goal is. And if they happen to, we have spokesmen, people who speak on our behalf. But if something happened in the past, every time we had a spokesman who we elected, the people elected, they've killed them. So as we continue to move forward, if everybody's on the same page and we all understand what the goal is and what the mission is, if they remove somebody from our midst, the vision will still carry on, which means that there is no leader. Our principles and our economic base is our leader. It's our foundation, and that's what we're going to live by. And those are our set principles. So I think how we do that is going to be that is the big question, as Wade was saying. That how do we do that? How do we bring people together? But I think a lot of it has to. I think a lot of it has to come down to beginning with our youth. I think we have to start educating our own children more so than anything else. We can't depend on anybody else to educate our children, even if we have the tough part about it, whether it's homeschool, because you got multiple parents most houses have two families that's working, but we have to find a way to educate our own children so that they can understand and read the books that we want them to read and understand our knowledge of who we are. I think a lot of it starts with that, and therefore they'll all be driven to work together as a team and be on the same page, so that if anything happens, the mission and the goal, the vision still continue to move forward.
Well said. Maurice, you were shaking your head. I think you wanted to chime in. What do you?
I totally agree with these brothers. I do see it a little differently, but I do think it does need to be multiple leaders as a people leading and having the agenda. I'm just kind of reading the comments of Mr. Andrew West here, still stating the agenda. I was taught at a young age, if you do anything and you're able to make some out of yourself, make sure that you get your own. And the agenda is not the agenda. The agenda does not mean equality. I don't want to be equal to have an oppressor to put us in a particular position, and we have come out and have rised above that. You're only, you once heard you're only as good as the person you fought. So therefore, I'm not asking for equality. I want to be a Native American. That's what we are. A lot of people were African Americans or were Black. My great grands are full blood Indian. So I'm a Native Black American. I'm not an African American. So I need people to really understand it's not about equality. We as a people need to have our own. And then until that happens, we will be in the position where we have our hand out, or we're asking or pleading or begging for us to, let me get a little piece. If you have your own, and again, I believe one of the brothers touched on that economic foundation. You do have to have that set discipline in economics and set that foundation, allowing your children to understand really what's going on in a society, because every game that was played with us, we've won. Every hurdle we've passed, educational wise. What keeps coming to mind is this American dream. It doesn't matter how successful you are, Black or other, nationality, origin, religion, or what have you. You're still all enslaved because you owe someone. Again, we're paying attention to a lot of smoke screens. We have to pay attention to really what's going on. To have freedom, as Mr. Andrew keeps saying, or equality is not wanting, but to have freedom, you have to not be enslaved in something. And as long as you or I can put this in your mindset that you need this American dream, we're going to be enslaved to it, because therefore they put a carrot in front of our eyes to chase. Go buy a house, go do this, go do that, go do this. This is what the American dream is, but that's their American dream. That's not the Native Black American dream. So that's my perspective. That's my thought.
To even go with that, Andrew, you speak about equality, but we just take the incidents from Atlanta. If you go just from Atlanta, when one day apart, social media is like no other now. Social media sheds a light on a lot of things, right? So we have the situation that happens at the Wendy's with The young man that had to run in with the two police officers, he's run away with the taser. Apparently, he grabs the taser after a struggle. He shoots back a taser and he's murdered. Well, not 7 to 8 hours later, there's a video that comes out of a white male in the same situation chasing a police officer. Not only did he chase the police officer, he got in the police car, drove it, and crashed the police car, and then got in his car and drove off. So where's the equality in that? Because if we want to call apples apples and oranges oranges, at the end of the day, that 9-minute video that we saw of that incident wouldn't have made it past a minute if the shoe was on the other foot. Because that's not the reality we live in. And then you talk and you come with your points, and I like it, but we're not going to be, this generation will not be enslaved to a party. This generation is going to educate themselves on what we want. Who's going to give us what we want? My sons, I'm a father of 3 boys. They're going to make sure that they're educated on what they want. We had somebody talk about the only way out is sports. No, it's not. Because we need more people. I'm a teacher. I'm a coach. I do make a difference every day. But I'm not making a difference for my era. It's for the kids that I teach, so we don't go through this again. So my grandkids don't have to sit here and look at the same videos I'm looking at. So we do make a difference, and we're going to change the narrative. But we still have to have a plan, and that's why we're talking. Because when the marching stops, you know what's going to start? I'm going to change the way I educate in my classroom. Because I don't just teach black kids. I don't just teach whites, and I don't just teach Mexicans. I teach all kids. It starts there. It starts in the mind. But the mindset has to change. Anyone care to elaborate?
Kenny, I'm gonna jump in on here, and something that brother Marlon said about leadership before. I just want to elaborate on that, and then I'll push it to what you were talking about from the education perspective. But when I think about leadership, I think it's probably one of the most important things and I always think about it as an essential skill that's needed, and it's needed in every single household, because every single one of us, although we don't think we are leaders, we are. And every single thing that we're doing, even from being on this video right now, there's somebody that's watching us. We may be an uncle who don't have any kids, but there's somebody that's watching us. So we always put our best foot forward, try to educate ourselves, always are looking to rise above. I think that, as a group of individuals, we will then see a bigger picture and march towards a specific goal. But it does take for us to really explore who we are as a people, individuals first, and then, research what it is that we really value in life, and then try to connect with what that is in America. And I would say this: leadership is an important part of that. Again, I like to define and use a definition of leadership is the ability to influence others towards a goal or a value that you think is acceptable. And once we all think in a mindset that every single thing that we're doing every single day is being watched by others, whether it's our nieces, nephews, cousins, whatever it is, it's going to help set the example for others to fall in line with our footsteps, right? I think about, since starting my platform, how many people have come to me and said, Antoine, what you're doing is great. And how many other people have started platforms just because I've had a platform? That's an example of leadership. And every single one of us have a purpose in that. Kenny, you're a coach. Brother Cecil, you're a coach. And you guys are doing some fantastic things. And that's what we need. We need continuously to see our brothers and sisters doing more and being the example. No excuses there. But going on to the the United States and what we consider to be an education system. I think in order for us to get to a point of what Andrew West talks about from an equality standpoint, education system needs to be completely revamped. I mean, like, you think about it, it's outdated. We've never been number one since World War II in any assessments. You can look at PISA, you can look at anything else across the entire world. From a math academic standpoint, we've never been number one since World War II. I mean, literally right now, you think about from a math and reading standpoint, we fall below countries like Vietnam, who we bombed off the freaking planet, right? And I've been able to visit a country like that and be able to see how their academics are more superior than ours. And not only that, live in a third world country. Well, what we would consider the United States would be considered a third world country. Actually, it's more like a first world country, but yet we look down on them, and our education system is a lot better, where I would prefer my kids to be educated there versus coming back to the United States and deal with all the other crap that we have to deal with here. So education system in general has to be revamped. I mean, like, from all of the teachings on who the successors are, you really have to balance that out and really start to tell the truth, because what's been written in our education systems really disregard anybody of other ethnicities if they aren't white, right? You don't hear about anybody doing anything else besides white men doing stuff that has helped our country to become what it is. And now that you see what it is, I don't think a lot of people really want to continue with what it is anymore. Our eyes have been opened. It's all been a lie. Everybody in the United States at the end of the day is enslaved. Even our military folks. You go overseas, you have, wars, you have all this other stuff, but you come back to the country and you don't even have the health coverage to be able to, obviously succeed here and live a normal life, because you have PTSD and you don't get it's a lot of homeless people all over the place. And a lot of the homeless people are war veterans. So you're talking about a country that's, I would say this: the United States is the biggest pimp that we actually have in the world, right? We use people, we exploit them. There's a dollar value to certain people, certain groups of people. There's no dollar value to that at all. And I really do think that if we want equality completely, everything has to be written, from books, literature, all that stuff. So it's complex, and I don't mean to dig and be, theoretical about it, but it's a lot more than what we see it from the surface standpoint from just African Americans. It's more than that, because there's a lot of people that are suffering in the United States that even thought that they were protected. I can tell you this: I have a father-in-law who spent his entire life being an entrepreneur, 57 years owning his own company. All right. And he gets sick, and it takes him 4 years to be able to find a diagnosis on his deathbed. Right. And you're like, wow, I'm a white American. I'm supposed to have all these equal things. And at the end of the day, he gets shysted as well, too. He's paid his Social Security, paid all his taxes. And at the end of the day, the United States is failing him as well, too. So, right, you can say that we have the Jeff Bezos and the Mark Zuckerbergs, and they can pay for all this other stuff. Yes. But guess what? United States failed even the Apple CEO, right? He died of cancer, right? So at the end of the day, we all end up getting the short end of the sticks because of the democracy that we have in place today. And it's yes, our plague is worse than everybody else, I think, but everybody's getting screwed in this system, man. We all being pimped.
I like that. One thing I do take in consideration is my brother Antoine. You travel the world. Your job has afforded you the ability to see many places, different countries. And I remember various conversations where you told me you do feel safer outside of the country a lot. Marlon, I know you just went over to Europe, and I mean, I haven't had that pleasure yet. It's on the list to go, but I wonder why it feels that way. And one of the things I think about is just the gun laws in other countries. Maybe there's not so much violence, police brutality, and different things because nobody's carrying guns. Nobody has permits to have guns. So you look at those things. If we look at police reform, like it's not just the education, it's also the police, it's also cleaning up politics as well. Um, the things that we're asking for, they're all great ideas, but it's getting it together and getting it in place. So, what's your take? Come on, let's speak.
I mean, it's a lot being said. It's a lot going on. Like, I agree with you. We start talking about different places around the world. I think what Americans don't realize is how people around the world view us until you leave this country. Then you get a chance to really see what people think. As I say, I took my I've been to London. I've been to London twice within the last year. I took my family there for Christmas. I let my kids have a good time, and not one time, both times we were there, I seen a military rifle one time while I was there, but no other guns. They're nervous about knives. They get killed with knives, or knife stabbings is their biggest thing over there. But um, the questions that they have for me was, why do we stay here? Why do we put up with what's going on? And I think I've told you before, I talked to two different sisters while I was over there, and I asked them one time to describe African Americans or Native Blacks in one word. One said lost, the other said confused. They were separate from each other. Only because it's not that they're not with us, but they're wondering, like, why are you there? And they don't realize that the propaganda says, like, why would we leave? It's worse when we leave. And if you don't have a passport, having a passport is big, to be able to go around the world and see exactly what's out there. And unfortunately, many of us don't have that luxury. And if we did have one, sometimes the tickets can be quite expensive. But those are some of the things that I think we need to share and communicate with everyone as well. It's a beautiful world out there. And I looked over to the side, and I see Andrew West he's still at it. He's having fun there. But he said one time, Andrew said he works at a construction company or something like that, and he doesn't see color. And see, like, Andrew, I would beg to differ with you, buddy. And I would say, you know what? If you're a white man, I need you to see color. I don't want you to be colorblind, because if you're colorblind, you're going to treat me like the next person, and you won't understand my plight. I need you to see color. I need you to see what I deal with and why I have to have a different conversation with my children every day than you. I need you to see color. And at the same time, I need Black people to understand that we need to stop allowing ourselves to be called victims. And because we don't want to let everybody have control and power over us, we have to find a way to come together and unite on some guiding principles. I'll stand by that. And that's something that I strongly believe in. And when we start talking about leaders, I'm okay with following someone as well, but as long as that we know if that something happens to that leader, that everyone else can pick up the mantle and continue to carry it forward.
I would say this, Marlon, you can't be a great leader unless you learn to be a great follower first.
Agreed.
I was always told that we were created with 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. Listen before you speak, so that when it's your turn to speak, you can be well informed and you can have the right information to pass on to the next set of listeners.
Mm-hmm.
This discussion, we are all taking it in. And I like the fact, like I said, the name of this show is Difference of Opinions. We all think different. We all are wired different. One thing we all have in common on this show, we all are Black, but we don't run the same race. I have a friend of mine here. He sends out a tweet every day or so, say, run your race. And I like it. I told him if he don't hurry up and make a shirt, I'm going to go ahead and make a shirt that says it. You know what I mean? But I believe, when you find your purpose, you run with it. Some of us are going to be pushed to the front. Some of us are going to be great support from the back. Some of us are going to be great support financially. Some of us will be that person that is pushed out to the masses and may be picked on, may be talked about. Some of us may have to wear the cross that Obama had to wear for 8 years. When he got to where he got to, we felt at times he didn't give us what we needed. Is that fair? I don't think it is. Some may say it is. But that assessment that we are given when it's our time to be in front, sometimes it's not what we thought when we decided to wear that hat.
What I would say about that, Kenny, just to elaborate more on just, I mean, like 45 presidents, right, that we've had.
Yes.
We've had one African-American president. I think the expectations in before 2016, I believe that's when, what was it? Trump got elected in 2016? That's when I was in KL, Malaysia. During the Obama era, you got to remember something, and this is something that I always would say about President Obama, no matter how many people can debate what he did or did not do. You got to remember he was the first, right? So, when you're the first at something, typically, you don't always succeed in the way that you want to, right? So it's for the people that he was the example for, that now sees that he had some really very big challenges that he had to face in order for him to become president, and also to push an agenda that potentially would have been at conflict with the greater majority of people during the time. So now that we've already been past that and we've already experienced that we had a Black president, now what's the next Black president going to do, right? You have to remember that there's going to be a first step, a second step, a third step, a fourth step. So I don't think about President Obama as being a failure to Black people at all. I think he was actually a freaking successful president that we've had, not only just from a political standpoint, a presence standpoint, an example standpoint, a leadership standpoint, that all of our youth across the world, I'm not talking about the United States, we got 43 million people in the United States that's Black, right? I'm talking about the rest of the world. And that's something that we fail to understand a lot of the times, that we have a single mindset that the United States is the biggest country in the world. It's not. And there's been so many people that's been inspired by this gentleman being the supreme leader of the wealthiest country in the world, right? That it has done a significant, it has given the people significant encouragement to be better themselves. So, I think he was a successful president. Has he been able to push, what we need from an equality standpoint? I don't think so, because we see where we are today. But no other president, 45 of them have been able to do so. And we have one right now that is able to sit down and listen to, our perspectives. At least that's what I'm seeing. And we'll see where we go in September or November. But, I think President Obama was a success in my category of what success would be. And if I was to say, if he was the person that was, the Jesus of Black people, no, he absolutely wasn't. And we have to remember that it was the first time we've ever been into a leadership position like that. So the subsequent leaders in this position should get better. So I'm optimistic about that, man.
How long before you think we get another chance?
I don't know. It's about us being leaders again. That's what I come back to. It's about us being leaders, wanting to take the reins, wanting to push the envelope, wanting to get better. He's already set the example. Who's next? There's going to be somebody who's behind us that we may not know at this point in time, but we may know by September. I don't know who that person is at this point in time, but I know damn well he ain't Joe Biden. So, at this at this point in time, you just never know. But I do know there's somebody that's right after, and that's one thing that I can say for our people as a culture. When we see one person doing something, we can push towards that, and typically we overachieve or out-achieve what this person who was there in the first place has done. So I'm optimistic about that, man. And I know there's a lot of people that's striving for excellence and striving to get to that position. So we'll see what happens, brother. Maybe Kenny, maybe it's one of our kids. We'll see. We'll see. Maybe it's one of our kids.
Any takers?
Hey, I honestly think that we do need a minority. It would be awesome to have a black woman as president. There are a couple Senate seats, I know Texas-wide, that are African American women, and that would be really, really awesome. But as the brother said, I believe Wade, we do as black individuals need to stop thinking or putting our black individuals who happen to be in leadership and looking at them as the black Jesus. They're not. And part of that issue is everybody that we put forth. And I heard someone else say this earlier, every black leader that we've had, they've killed, and or tried to assassinate. We as a people have to support that. Think about before they were assassinated or out of the position, how many black people got behind them. I think, again, we will always come back to that situation and that question that until we support us, we will be defeated as a people. And also understand we are not the minority here in this, we're the majority. So I was also taught that you can't teach people, you cannot teach people something. Life will show them. To qualify as African American or Native Black, you have to have a certain percentage of Black blood in you, and you are qualified as Black. And the way things are going, things will be understood when you have all these white families that go along with not the systemic or the racial mentality of we don't like a different race. But once those people, and there are a lot of biracial marriages. I do know some Black families and white families who have gotten together and they have Black kids. Once those kids start being affected, a lot of the white society and mindsets will change because no longer is it happening to them, it will be happening to you. As that man said, he has a white father-in-law who figured out, hey, we're all being victimized and pimped out. It will come too late, I believe, for people to realize that will happen to you as well. It's not just happening to gays. It's not just happening to Jews. It's not just happening to Indians. It's not just happening to Blacks. It's happening. This is a culture of people. This is a people problem. This is not a Black or a white or gray area. This is a people problem. And until we address it as such a people problem, we'll remain in the same boat. So,
you know it, MP. I think that's why you see the world marching. I think people are really starting to open up that it is a people problem, and it's not just a black and white problem or anymore. It's a people problem, and that's why you see the protests across the different countries, right? I think there's been over 33 different countries outside of the U.S. that's been protesting about this. And that's what gives me the optimism that things are going to change. It's like a wake up that people are starting to say, like, whoa, back this thing up. If that can happen to him, right, this can certainly happen to me. And it has happened to other groups of people. I know the light is shined just from the media standpoint because it's about divide and conquer on black and white. But this has happened to many other people. That's why people are believing into these protests. And, at the end of the day, it's about power structures that need to be broken down, and people having power that don't need to have power, and people abusing that power. And
That's
once
right.
we, once you start to hold people accountable for abusing that power, things are. Once we start to hold them accountable, things will start to change. If we don't hold them accountable for it, things won't change. And it starts with corporations and things like that too. So at the end of the day, I still think that the people, we are the most important. And if we decided to join together, doesn't matter race, religion, or anything like that, we can topple anything. I mean, that's just the end of the day. If we really want it change, all it takes is for us to unite as a group of people, doesn't matter race, religion, and we can change a system. And I am confident about this change that's coming up right now because of the global impact that it's had thus far. It's been, again, 30 something plus countries that has gotten behind this movement, and it's continuing to go, today. And it's been already over a month since the death of brother George Floyd. So it's going to be interesting what happens in the future, man.
Hey, let me pose this first question to Brother Wade.
Yes,
Even though these people are protesting it, and you didn't catch the earlier show, so I'm not believing in supporting all these black people marching and protesting, holding all these signs. To me, that's a sign of weakness to kneel down before oppressor. As you just said, and you agree with me that it is a people problem. Okay, so allow the Jews, allow the different minorities and religions to march. Black people need to first come together and support Black. We don't need to be out protesting and marching and kneeling before. We need to be organizing, setting structure and foundation, becoming disciplined. That's what we need. Allow the other religions, minorities, and other groups and forms of people to protest for equality for us, if they're really about that. See, I feel that this should have never gone this long if you have a bunch of people, and it is a people problem, a bunch of people who see me as equal. But I would be a damn fool to think a dog sees a cat equal. You won't see a cat saying, hey, I want to be a dog. Nor do you see a dog saying, hey, I want to be a cat. I want to be recognized, respected as a native Black African American. Point blank, period. There's no equality in that. We are our own. Okay? I don't want to get that confused. We are our own, and we need to address and be addressed as our own.
Yeah, I would agree with that, MP. I mean, like, I think I didn't understand the question, but what I would say though is that we are our own people. I think the United States needs to respect that we are our own group of people that come with our own differences, and unfortunately, we haven't gotten the full respect that I think we want. But also at the same time, I don't think a lot of people within this country feel like they got the full respect that they want, whether that is from abuse from the government systems or whatever structures that exist. What I do agree with is that Black people being out in front marching for the rights of equality is very important. I don't think that sitting back and organizing, because I do think we are organized. We may not feel that we're organized because of the small little areas that we are in, but I do think that there's a lot more going on than we have information on. I just think of, small areas that goes on within corporations and things like that I have control over, that a lot of people just don't know that I have control over it. So, they may seem that or say that, okay, well, nothing's going on in this apartment because they just don't know. But I do think that there's a lot of African Americans that are mobilizing, and, the structures are in place to make this move forward and make it impactful. And thus far, we are able to see that. Now, at the same time, it is a catch-22, because you are starting to see the majority of the world join us in this fight. And what that shows, though, is that there are other groups of people that are of a majority that seems like they're taking control over this, and then narratives can change and things like that. So, at the end of the day, we may not be getting the full, you know, um, uh, decisions or full thoughts out there of what we really want, because they could be hijacked by others. What I would say about, other folks that are out there that's, pushing for equality and things like that. I personally don't want any Caucasian white Americans to do things that are outside of what the Black community wants. And I see that happening all the time. You see what's going on now with some of the corporations starting to say, okay, well, we're going to remove the names of Auntie Mama and all this other stuff. We got L'Oreal saying we're going to move whiteness from all this stuff. They aren't asking Black people for that. That's just a guilt trip for themselves, knowing that they've done wrong and them making themselves feel better about what's going on. But at the end of the day, they're not asking African-American groups what we want for that. At the end of the day, if you were to ask African-Americans what we really want, I think a lot of people would say it has to do with a lot of dollars and wealth, right? We want to get paid for, the wealth gap that we have in the United States. We want to have an equal playing field of, ownership in the land that we were promised years ago that we never ever had, and therefore not contributing to the generational wealth. So, there's perspective there, sir, that, you're right. There's groups of people that are starting to do things that are really grandiose and big. And I'm not going to say I don't like it, because at the end of the day, a lot of us who are on the right path are going to benefit from it. But also at the same time, it's not like it's our decision. If you were to ask me, Antoine, hey, you know what? L'Oreal, who's a big time, cosmetic brand, saying that they're going to remove whiteness from off of the whiteness cream. Do I care about that? Hell no. What I want to do is I want to be able to get money. Give me some extra access to PPP loans. Give me extra access to EIDL loans. Give me access to, capital to where, I started a business in 2018. I can get, a loan for $50,000 to help me out with marketing and push my agenda. That's what I want, and I think that a lot of African Americans and Black people would probably choose that rather than, seeing whites saying that they're going to remove Auntie Mama and whiteness from off of, brands and topple statues and all this other stuff. So
how do you feel? And I apologize for monopolizing the time. How do you feel? You made the comment of we are organized. I'm really waiting to hear that. How as a people do you feel we are organized?
I would say this, MP. I think that there's a lot of politicians that are in the United States government, from Atlanta Mayor Keisha to another Congresswoman, Angela Stanton. You have quite a bit of other folks who have the interests of Black Americans on their side. So I do think that there's an organization that is within the Black community that we all have talking points from, whether that's conservative or Democratic. I do think there is an organization out there. Now, is it the fact that we can go to one website and all of us, have access to the one political agenda? But no other group of people have that. It's a dream that we all can buy into one vision, but you have to remember that doesn't exist in any other country. That's a false hope. That's a false narrative. That's a false whatever it is, right? So I think overall, in general, just from the people that we have in the political environments, you think the churches and thus far, right? All of those are areas where we are groups of people and we're able to mobilize and get information from and push agendas. Now, is the agenda solid? I think that's an area that needs to be cleaned up a little bit more. We need to have a stronger agenda to push forward. But I do think that there's groups of people that are out there that can get it done. So,
guys, before we go forward, I want to pose this question to Cecil. And they always tell us in coaching that a head coach is only strong as his assistants. You got the right assistants around you, you become a better leader. You become more than likely you become a champion. So as we talk about getting this structure together, if we talk about the different things that we need in place, how impactful would the next leader having the right cabinet around him matter? And if it is a Democrat president, having the right people around him from the start, how much of change do you think that's going to make?
Uh, I think it'll be very impactful just because having that cabinet to go to really be able to get the things that we want as a community, as Black people, to get those things from different perspectives, different areas, to be able to have them to lean on to continuously have your ear to the street, as we call it. But that helps because you never can really forget where you come from. So I think having and that goes into having accountability as well. Having that the right people in that cabinet can check you at times when you tend to veer off of the road. Um, so I think that's something I wanted to talk to something that Andrew West has said when he was talking about equality and you want to have the same thing that I have. That's I don't want to have what you have per se. Um, for me, I want my children to be well off. So is that I'm not saying that's what you, but that's for me. So technically, we're throwing the word equality and things like that, but really equality is what my mom fought for. Now I want my kids and my community to be well off, better than when I was born into, So equality is something that's not the solution to our problem. Um, and I see, it's talking about freedom. Once again, freedom is in your mind. I think that's our biggest issue. One of our biggest issues is we're not free in our mind. We're still enslaved in our mind. In our community, we're still enslaved to some degree in our mind. So I mean, I'm free to walk out my door, but that at the time that's once again that's a word. It's not the solution to what we're trying to accomplish. So I just think that having our mindset to change, being educated to the point where we not forgetting about the past because we need the past to push us to the future, but we understand from the past the things that were done and how we can do differently to affect more change as time goes along.
Go ahead, Marlon. I know you've been sitting over here. I've been watching.
I'm feeling. I'm good. I just I think that when you start talking about having we got to remember that Obama, his first 2 years, he was the president. He had the House and the Senate on his side, and it wasn't much done then. Even during that point in time, even before he got in, they had already said that they weren't gonna roll with him, even though they were Democrats as well, and he was a Democrat. So no policies got passed to help Black people during that time. So it's the system. You got to communicate and talk about the system collectively and what's going on. And even then, it was interesting to me how before the election, his first election, President Obama's first election, that they said they were not for gay marriage, things of that nature. Biden said it as well. Then after his first term, in order to get reelected, he compromised a lot of things and said he compromised a lot of things and said that he was now for that. So, you compromise a lot of things that actually kind of help set your own people back in order to, for what? To get reelected? When in all fairness, like I said, the first 2 years of his presidency, he had the House and the Senate. Nothing was passed. So I think we need to look at the system again collectively and not expect anything to be done for us. Whatever we want, we're going to have to do it. Take it, and show that we mean business by whatever we do. And if we're going to have to hold people accountable, hold your vote or do whatever, and support each other and make our money at least spend more than more than once in our own community. That's what we have to start talking about and doing. But we don't have enough of those conversations. And for this movement that was going on, I'm not really even all for this movement either, man.
That was 2 shows ago, man. We already been down that road.
Yeah, I'm not for that movement. So yeah, that's where I stand with that.
Fellas, the hour is growing. We're approaching that 2-hour limit. Great conversation, and we will pick up again. I give everybody their parting shots. I'll start with MP.
Hey, I just appreciate the conversation, great ideas. Proud to see Black men voicing Black opinions. And I look forward to the next round, man. I appreciate you having me.
Antoine.
Brother Kenny, thanks so much for all that you continue to do, my man. You have no idea how proud I am of you. I love to see thought leaders that you bring together to talk about things that matter, that truly do matter, and not only that, to make a difference. So, Brother Marlon, Brother Cecil, Brother MP, man, I appreciate to share the panel with you guys. Looking forward to doing it sometime in the near future. And Kenny, man, keep me updated on when you're going to have these shows. I will certainly join to add my perspective, sir. Appreciate you, brother.
Good. To one of my co-hosts, I thank you guys. We took a back seat tonight because I really wanted to hear a lot from our guests. Cecil, what's your parting shot?
No, just great conversation, man. Once again, just furthering ourselves as Black men, man. I think it's something that's needed, but also let's not forget our women are encouraging us. I think at times, so we, as men, you get out there and you feel as though, I got to do it. It's me, and we get that bravado about ourselves a little bit, but they are there. And every now and then it's nice to let them know that you appreciate them being there. So just man, I like I say, now it's just the action part, going from the whole idea of the marching thing and everything. But now let's get what we need to get done from here, with the whole having our own things, our own businesses, our own everything, moving that forward to becoming a community that can sustain by ourselves, and being able to affect that change is now is the time that needs to be done in order to get further in our journey.
Mo Dollar, where you at?
I think that I enjoyed the conversation. It's always fun to hear different aspects and just the dialogue, man. On things that what's great about it is we can agree on things and we can hold our tongues on things that we might be in difference of opinions on, and then take the time to explain it in a productive way that gets our point across without disrespecting anyone. It's important for me to feel like we had to have a consortium, a collective consortium, so that when we know that something is wrong, we all support one another and that we have each other's back regardless of differences of opinions, that we all stand for. We have a common goal and a common bond between one another, and we can disagree with each other, but when it comes down to our collective goal overall, we will unite and stand together no matter what. I think that's urgently important, and I'll continue to sit back and say, man, as I always say, man, I think economics is important because we have to train the minds of the kids to be able to understand what our values and principles are, so that when they get older, that they won't stray from it. That's important.
Wow. As we sit and wrap up this show, first of all, this is the most interaction we had from our guest, Andrew West. I don't know who you are, where you from, man, but appreciate you just staying tuned in to keep your attention for 2 hours. For us, is a great testament for one, and at the end of the day, you continue to voice your opinion on difference of opinion. So we look forward to getting you on one day, so we can see your face and hear your point of view as well. For me, again, it's about making sure that this generation coming behind us understand and can achieve that so-called equality or freedom that you speak about, Andrew. But also for us, it's that empowerment as fathers, as leaders, as men, as business owners. We all are business owners on here. We all are fathers, and we all are making sure that our kids don't see the world through the same lens that we had to look through. And I think conversations like this is where it starts. But conversations like this also gets the ball rolling to ensure that their future is different. And we have to make sure that it don't stay the same. And it's a sad day that, again, I always say that we're still dealing with the same things that our grandfathers dealt with, in some sense. So with the increase in technology, the internet, and so on and so forth, we haven't got better. It just got worse, because now it's in front of us because of social media, and it's out in our face. It's still been going on, but now it's dragged through the media and we all can see it. And that's the difference. So as we get ready to close out this one, I thank you guys for coming on. At the end of the day, until we do this again, you guys be safe. Midweek, be ready. We'll find something else to talk about. And hopefully I can get some of you guys back on sooner than later. Difference of opinion, Dops, signing off.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.